Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in for another podcast, and I am extremely excited this week because we've got a guest on who I'm a big fan of. So I'd like to introduce everybody to Chris Collier.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. Yeah. Like I say, it's this is a good time to come and just talk about what I do and what I've done before. Yeah.
And like I say, that this is just a very informal discussion, and wherever we go with this discussion is completely up to you.
Yeah.
So would you like to say a bit about you, a bit about your past, a bit about who you are now?
Yeah. Okay. So my full name's Chris Collier. I'm 40 years old. I've recently just retired from the army after reaching my pensionable age. But I was born and raised in Sunderland. At the age of 19, I joined the army and went into the parachute regiment. And after about 7 years, I decided to restart my career and become an officer. And so I've basically been, say, on both sides of the sort of the commission and coin, and seen both sides of the army, which has been a great experience. Not just in terms of the various types of jobs I've had, but in terms of the preparation for my job as an officer by being in the ranks has helped me as well.
Yeah, so the kind of the step from sort of corporal to officer and a whole different kind of, life, that must have been a really big kind of step for you.
Yeah, it was a big culture change. I can't lie about that. When I chose to become an officer, it was, like I say, everyone was quite positive about it, and everyone understood the reasons of why I wanted to do that, because I wanted to be leading men from the front, not being as the rank of sergeant and colour sergeant, where you can be more of an administrative role. I wanted to. It was almost for romantic reasons. I wanted to command men in battle, and I got the opportunity to do that shortly after finishing my training. I went straight out to Afghanistan, and for the last 2 months of Op Herrick 8 with 2 para, and I found myself in command of 40 plus platoon of men and women, because I had some females with us medics on the ground as well, who actually did a great job. Yeah. But that was just an honour and a privilege. But it was the big pressure with that, because albeit I was one of the oldest, if not and perhaps one of the most experienced members of the platoon, which is rare for a young officer. It was still, I was very conscious that when I arrived in Afghanistan as a newly commissioned officer, the rest of the platoon and the company and the battalion had been out there for 4 months, and they'd seen a lot of action. And the platoon I arrived to had actually lost 4 people to a suicide bombing. Which was a huge challenge, because I had to express my willingness to get kind of stuck in and to show the keenness to my superiors, but also temper that with the knowledge that my soldiers just wanted to come home safe. They'd seen enough action, they'd had their taste of combat, and the last thing they wanted was me going out there, and just trying to get them stuck into fights that they didn't have to get stuck into. So I was conscious of that all the time.
Very, very fine kind of balancing act.
Absolutely.
And it's always a case in any kind of role, the military or civilian life, that kind of the person in the middle who answers to people at the top but responsible for the people below. It's like, how can you possibly maintain that balance? And when you think of where you were in Afghanistan, through such extreme circumstances, the pressure that must have been on yourself must have been really quite significant.
It is. I mean, it's always, you've got to prioritise the mission first. That's what you're expected to do, but you've got to have a human side of it. You've got to understand that you're going to be in charge of 40 beating hearts, which are going to be out there. And the surprising thing for me was, they'd always told you about it at Sandhurst and warned you about it was going to happen, but to actually see it happen in the flesh was really humbling. And that's what I mean by that is when I arrived out in Afghanistan with my platoon and two para, and we came under contact from the enemy from the first time. I was out on this is my first contact out there.
Yeah.
And you kind of expect everyone just to know what their jobs are and know what their roles are and to do it, and which they do. But there was that little lull when you first come under enemy fire that they all stop and look at you and go, right, sir, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
And it's that pressure, you're thinking, wow. And you think, right, my next few seconds, minutes, the next few decisions I make could determine the lives of the people under my command here. And it's a huge pressure, but it's something that, Christ, if I was to go back to there now, if I was to go back in time, I'd go back to there and do that, because it was a pressure which I relished. Yeah. And it was it was good to know that, to come back and nobody got wounded under my command while I was out there, which was good to have. Yeah.
Excellent. But just hearing you explain it that way about the pressure, I really feel it coming from you. That the pressure is immense, and when you talk about the humanness of it all as well, I think that's what gets overlooked a lot. I mean, I remember when I was serving in the Navy, I was actually lean hand in charge of the mess deck. There was about 54 men down the mess deck. And when you go away for 8 months at a time, it was always important not just to see them as sailors or service numbers, but actually these are people that have got families at home. Yeah. These are people that have got pregnant partners at home. So the responsibility that lays on your shoulders, and they've got to be broad shoulders to be able to take that.
Yeah.
But like you say, if you can get to a level where you can relish it, it gives you that great big sense of purpose.
Yep.
And that kind of sets off a chemical reaction in your body where it's just kind of possibly the greatest drug ever.
Yeah. No, it is, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I say, it was of all the jobs I've done in the army, being in command and operations was, people think, well, is it the best thing? It really, for me, it was. Yeah. It really is the best thing. But you don't feel like it at the time. But retrospectively, there's a lot of times I would say to people in the army, it's retrospective enjoyment.
Yeah.
If you're walking through a river with freezing cold water and run 3 legs, and you think, well, in a few years' time, you'll look back and enjoy these days. Yeah. And people think, you're stupid, but you do. It's really nice. But that's what operations are like. It's hard work. Yeah. But I say it's retrospective enjoyment, because
exactly.
You think back and think, God, those were the days. And you see this all over social media and things like that. So many people are reminiscing and posting pictures about when they were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's just, So
I mean, I remember we had a deployment in the Caribbean. We had 8 months in the Caribbean, just island hopping and doing the kind of drugs patrols, stopping all the drugs coming from the place like Venezuela and in Colombia and all that, and it was amazing. 8 months in the Caribbean. But people asked us when I first left, how was it? And I was like, after about a month, it was boring. If you've been to one Caribbean beach, you've been to them all. And I was like, it was so boring and mundane. But I tell you what, retrospectively, I freaking wish I was back there now. Yeah. I wouldn't mind being on a Caribbean beach, supping on a nice rum cocktail, with me dog tags on, playing volleyball on the beach, thinking I'm Tom Cruise.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, like I say, I've had the pleasure of being over to Belize. I've been to Brunei on a jungle warfare course, and you kind of, you don't really appreciate it at the time, and you think back now, and in fact, I still say I'm passionate about photography, and we'll come on to that. Yeah, I'd still say now, and I'll show you this picture later. The best sunset I've ever seen was whilst I was an hour after a jungle warfare course in up in Malaysia, and it's just like. And I still think back to that time, and I just think that it wasn't just the sunset. Yeah. It was this fact I was surrounded by my mates. We'd all had a great time out there, and it was just one of the most sort of beautiful places on the planet.
And that's a beautiful thing about something like that, because when we've got a photograph or something that can really take us back, it's not just an image. It actually takes us back there in our mind.
Yeah.
So we actually say, well, I remember I was around such and such, and I remember the breeze, the warm air.
Mm-hmm.
It takes us back there, and that's so powerful, so powerful.
Yeah. Well, I find that as I say, as a photographer these days, I'll like I showed you some of my pictures up in the mountains the other day.
Yeah.
As I was on a short time frame to get up and down to get the kids from school, but so I was just taking pictures, knowing full well that I wasn't actually taking in the scenery myself.
Yeah.
But when I get down, I'll actually take that in and do that.
I think that happens a lot, doesn't it? People, I remember watching the Champions League final. Was it last couple of years ago when Liverpool were in it?
Yeah.
And I think Liverpool scored, and then the camera showed the Liverpool fans celebrating, but they all had the camera like that. So they're looking at the stadium, the experience, everything. They're looking at everything through this little screen. And I was thinking, just put your friggin' phone down and see the whole thing for real. But you're absolutely right, it's so hard to kind of switch everything off and take everything in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as we're talking about that I've really wanted to bring this because this really inspired me, what you did the other day. Do you want to talk about when you kind of woke up in the morning and decide you want a cup of coffee on a mountain?
Yeah, so, I mean, kind of fast forward to today. I'm working part-time for a fantastic charity called the Bradley Lera Foundation, which I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast will be aware of. Mm-hmm. And but I've been able to set up basically my work, so I've got Tuesdays and Thursdays off.
Brilliant.
Basically, my Tuesdays and Thursdays are kind of, I'm using them to sort of tee up wedding photography shoots, which I'm going to do in the summer, and things like that. So I'm trying to organise things like that and just help to turn my hobby into a profession. Maybe not to pay the bills, but certainly bring in an extra income to do that. And but on Tuesday, I didn't really have anything to set up, and I looked at the weather, and I just thought, actually, I had a long day in the office the day before, and I just, when I remember driving home, thinking, I'd just love to go and climb a mountain tomorrow. Yeah. So I looked at the weather, and then I did a bit of a time distance appreciation with where I was in relation to the Lake District, what time I had to drop the kids off at school, what time to have to pick them up, and so I thought, right, that's it, and I can do this, and I really love my coffee, and I thought that's going to be my goal today. My goal is going to be to climb a mountain, drink a coffee at the top of the mountain, then climb back down, and that'll be a good day. You know.
Honestly, when I saw all that on social media, I was actually sat at home, and I found myself moving and sitting on the edge of my settee. I was looking at it, I thought, wow, that is so fucking inspiring. And I was totally taken back by it. I thought, there's a person that wakes up on a morning and says, I'm going to do something. Mm-hmm. Do something that is rewarding, fulfilling for me. Yeah. And it's so easy because we kind of go through everyday life. We've got, like you say, we've got to be back to pick the kids up. We've got the school run. Yeah. We've got the shopping to do. We might have to go and help some family. We might have some work to do in the house. So these are all day-to-day life. But sometimes life actually gets in the way of living. Yeah. And you by saying, well, I'm going to live today. Yeah. To actually go say, I'm going to have a cup of coffee on the top of a mountain.
I think that was, say, part of the thought, maybe sort of subconsciously, was like, I've not long been out the army, and what do I really miss about the army was actually getting out on the hills with my mates and doing stuff. I thought, well, here I am, I've got a day off, let's set myself a little bit of a challenge to do it. Yeah. Admittedly, though, I failed my challenge, because my challenge was to get up there, get down, and then get back to Richmond where I live in order to pick the kids up. But I ran out of steam coming down, probably because of my lack of fitness. So I'm tailing off a little bit at the moment. But I was running down, and absolutely ran out of steam, and
Yeah.
so I arrived back at the car park about 15 minutes later than I was hoping to be. So I thought, unless I break the speed limit, I'm not going to get back to pick the kids up. But fortunately, I was able to ring my mother-in-law, who was really close.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have to plead with her. I says, would you mind picking the kids up? And she was like, oh, Chris, absolutely, yeah. Because she knew I was out out in the countryside on my own. So it was handy to do that. So in future, I'm going to make sure I've got the safety net of someone to pick the kids up, so I haven't got the pressure on myself. Because it was actually getting quite dangerous with the speed in which I was coming down the mountain in order to try and meet that time frame. But no, it was a great day, and that'll not be the last that I do things like that. I'll be doing more of that.
If you do more, give us a ring.
Yeah.
Obviously, me clients will always come first, but if I'm just doing, say, office work or something, I would jump at the opportunities. They're really pushing myself, because I'm very aware that at the minute my life kind of gets in the way of me living.
Yeah.
I would love the opportunity to challenge myself and say, no, I'm going to switch the computer off. I'm going to put this paperwork away, and I'm going to meet up with my op or Chris, and we're going to climb a mountain, and we're going to sit there and have a cuppa.
Do you know that's a good point you have though? I always thought about this when I was an officer in the army. I was like, if I go and do something today, if I take my soldiers out on the hills or something, that, it's the work that needs to get done. Is that going to be affected if I do it tomorrow? And I'm not talking about being lazy and putting things back, but if I can just kind of prioritize something and get that done, can something wait? And if it can wait, then make the time to spend time with either your family or your mates and stuff like that, and do that.
I think you're absolutely bang on it. Make time.
Yeah.
How often do we speak to people and say, I've not got time?
No, not enough.
I've not got time. And it's like,
I'm
well,
guilty of it massively.
Yeah, but if we want something, we've got to really kind of ramp up our self-awareness and say, well, I'm actually going to make time. This is going to mean something to me. And the idea of joining you up a mountain, have a cup of coffee, is actually, I've got goosebumps thinking about it. I'm like, bang on. And this is exactly what
it doesn't have to be the route I went up either the other day, because that was quite...
It looked like a tough route, that one.
I went across Strading Edge, which is notorious for being what you call a scramble.
Yeah.
So it's especially when you're going past plaques and memorials where people over the years have slipped off.
Yeah. But I mean, for any of our people watching this who aren't really familiar with the forces, it is dangerous, but to a kind of a para, it's kind of, it's the same as going to the shops.
You say that, and I'm not going to name names, but that was the first time I've been up Helvellyn. That's now 4 times I've been up there. It's only the first time I've been up from that way.
Yeah.
The first time I tried that was when I was on an adventure training exercise with some of my friends in 3 para, and we only got to Striding Edge, and we had to turn around because there was two members of the group, which, albeit they'd thrown themselves out of planes for a living, they could not take themselves over that ridge. Wow. So, and what we didn't want to do was force anyone over there. Yeah. Because then we just increasing the risk, and if they did fall, it would land on our, we'd be living with that the rest of our lives if they did that. So we weren't going to push anyone way out of their comfort zone where it was going to endanger their risk. So we actually turned back there. Yeah. And my daughter, who's been up Helvellyn when she was the age of 6, right? She came up from the other side though. She was saying to me, she says, "Oh, I really want to go across that Striding Edge with you, Dad. I'd love to do that." And I said, "Well, okay." I says, "Well, if you do that," I says, "what I'll do is I'll make sure you're wearing a rope and it's attached to me." But actually, whilst I was up there last week, I made the decision. I says, "No, she's not experienced enough to do that, because she's 10 now." Yeah. Even if I had her onto a rope, if she slipped, she'd bring me with her. Wow. And we'd end up both tumbling down there. But when I was on my own, I wasn't worried about that risk and stuff like that. I thought, the only thoughts going through my head was, if I fall now, shit, who's going to pick the kids up from school?
Yeah, but that's how we become, though, isn't it?
Because I didn't have a phone signal at the time either to ring anyone and say. Yeah. But that was my main concern. But I'd say it's, for me, this whole thing of just getting in the outdoors is and it's just almost me trying to relive my past, but also the good parts about my army career. You know, I really enjoyed being outdoors and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people probably listening to this will be thinking, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
But for me, that's my comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
A lot of people prefer being indoors and being behind a desk or wherever they think. That's, for me, my comfort zone is probably being cold, wet, top of a mountain somewhere, probably at really early in the morning, and that's kind of environment I like to be in.
It's really important as well, because that part of you is a big element of you.
Yeah.
And where we often go wrong as individuals is we deny elements of ourselves. So, you know, for you going through training, you're joining the forces at such an early age, then being kind of attuned into something, that becomes part of you.
Yeah.
So if when you leave the forces, if you deny that aspect of yourself, you're going to have internal conflict. You're going to enter despair, you're going to enter confusion, and all from around denying a certain element of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we're guilty in all walks of our life, because, you know, when I introduced you, you know, we mentioned your photography, the Sunder Lad, the Bradley Lowry Foundation, the Army, the Parachute Regiment. These are all different elements of you that come together to make you as a whole. If we deny one element of you, then the rest become confused.
Yeah.
So we have to allow all elements of ourselves. So by you connecting with that element of you in nature, in the hills, I think it's fundamental.
Yeah.
And I really hope people do more. So I mean, if we think of, you know, I mean, I was in the Navy, you know, and back then I was actually quite slim. I was actually considered quite attractive. You know, the years have took the toll on us, but I was a bit of a womanizer. So I always get into trouble, say, if we're driving along and we'll see a nice looking lass walking past. In the past, I would always be like, well, check her out as she goes past. But now I'm more likely to have a crash if the missus in the car, because I'm deliberately looking the opposite way. But that kind of denies a certain element of ourselves. And that's not me saying I'm a womanizer now, or I'm a kind of staring at women as they walk past. But it's just accepting who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic, man. But I really hope that you kind of really give us a ring and I can see us up that mountain.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, what I plan to do is to do various mountains and mountain ranges. So one area I've not really explored is up the sort of Cheviots area. So,
Right.
You know, so that's up beyond this way. So I'd like to get up there. So I'll give you a buzz.
Well, we started last year, me and Lindsay, my partner, my fiancée. I'm going to get in all sorts of trouble off her today. But we started last year. We had a bit of a break in the lakes. We stopped at a brilliant little hotel, and we decided to climb a mountain. And I was looking, I mean, I was so out of practice. It's been over a decade since I've done anything like that. And we'll look, I says, well, there's a mountain just there, to the top end of Keswick. It was Red Screes.
Yeah.
And I says, well, it looks all right. It looks okay. And of course, halfway up, and I was in all sorts of bother. I was knackered, and by me back then, that was at me heaviest, so I was over 19 stone, and I'm trying to climb a mountain, but I'll have a para with us next time.
But the thing is, you've always got to know your limits, and
yes.
you've got to play to your experiences as well.
Yeah.
I have an ambition when it comes to mountaineering and fell running and things like that. Is this was in 2013. I was asked by a friend of mine who was the officer commanding P Company, whose actually job I took over after he left the army, and he said to me, Chris, do you fancy doing the Bob Graham round?
The Bob Graham
round? What the hell is the Bob Graham round? I've never heard of that. And he went, it's like the ultimate endurance test. He says, a mate of mine did it a few years ago and did it. He says, basically what it is, it's like you've basically got to circumnavigate the entire Lake District, covering all the major peaks in a 24-hour period.
Bloody hell.
I was like, surely that can't be done. He went, no, it can be done. he says, but you need a support team, and you need to be well prepared for it. And obviously, you've got to have luck on your side as well. So I was quite apprehensive. I thought, well, come on, let's add a bit of research about it. And lo and behold, this is what it was. And it's actually an exclusive club. If you do that, you then they have like annual dinners where you're in this, and it was only when did a little bit more research that found out that you have people who've like conquered Everest and KT. And they say, right, what's next on your bucket list? And they'll say, the Bob Graham round. So I was like, wow. That's the sort of level it's at. So I thought, well, okay, let's give this a go. I says, but we'll need to do this properly. We'll need to get a team of people to support us. We'll need to be very familiar with the routes, probably practice the routes and do this. And he was, he was a very laid back in his approach to everything he did in his life. And he was like, oh yeah, I guess we'll be fine. We'll do this, and we'll. I says, look, can we go and do some training for this? Like, no, there ended up being 3 of us. He says 3 fit blokes. We'll be fine. We'll do this. And I'm like, well, okay, well, and I'm just going along with it. And I'm like, well, come on, let's give it a go. I was early 30s, so I was like, but I was actually the fittest I've ever been because I was almost obsessive with running by this stage. I'd just done the London Marathon in 2 hours 59 minutes. So
I'd do it in about 2 days.
But it was like I've never been that fit in my life. And you picked me up at like midnight on I think it was a Friday night, and then we drove from my house in Catterick, where I was living, across, and we started off in Keswick at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we couldn't have a team. We ended up just having his mate who managed to last minute came along when he had his car, and he was just basically going to lay out fresh socks for us at each checkpoint as we went round. And then we started off in the north. We took in sort of Skiddaw and then Blencathra, and then as the sun came up, we were then back down from the northern lakes, and we were going up Helvellyn. And I remember thinking, I got to the top of Helvellyn. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, looking at my skin, and I was like, I'm actually starting to get sunburn already, because this was the 5th of July, I believe, 2013. I was like, this is getting dangerous here. This is just insane. I mean, because we had small packs on, but we had to to do it. We thought you would be able to like walk up the hills and run down, and that's you could get around it, but no, it turns out to keep on the pace, we had to pretty much run up the mountains and run down the mountains as well. But we were on pace. But it got to, I mean, we were about 8 hours into it. And we'd gone across the ridge from Helvellyn. And imagine it was like a clock face. We'd started in, say, the 11 o'clock. And we were now coming down to sort of 4 o'clock on the clock face, if you look at the course map as a coil. And I stopped to take a drink, and I felt myself physically panting like a dog. And I was saying to myself, this is just, I've never experienced this kind of pain and tired and fatigue I'm feeling now, and I'm only about a third of the way into it. And I looked across to my friend, and I said, look, I says, this is one of the hardest decisions physically I've had to make before. We're actually taking pride out of it and saying, look, I can't go on and do this. I went, if I go up after this next checkpoint, if I go up that next mountain, I'm either going to stay up there and die up there, or I'm going to be getting airlifted off. I went, because this is how bad I feel. And I was expecting the 2 of them to look at me and go, man up, Chris, or something, words to that effect. But they looked at me and went,
Thank God you said it first.
Because we were saying the same thing as well. So like, oh God for that. So we'll never talk about it again. Well, they actually didn't. But I've always like, I want to do this. I want to do more preparation stuff like that. But funnily enough, though, we went down the mountain, and we basically sort of with our tail between our legs got picked up, and then we went, right. It was getting on towards lunchtime. Like, let's go down to the pub and have a pint, and let's reflect on the stupidity that we've been. So we turned out it was the hottest day of the year, and we were like, that was because you've got to do it in the summer, so you've got the light on your side, but you've got to have luck, and we didn't have luck because it was well, we weren't prepared well enough for that. We weren't that familiar with the area. We should have had a bigger crew helping us out. We should have had a guide each time who could do all the navigating, and we just basically stay in his wake and just follow him around, and swapping the guides around like pacemakers do on marathons and things like that. We didn't have that. So we were, okay, so we'd have to do that. But we went down to the pub and we were looking on the news, and it was all the news. There was two, I remember watching, there was BBC and Sky News were on two different screens, and both of them were kind of showing the same sort of video with Take a Take on it. And it turns out it was the day that at the time there had been 2 British soldiers who died in the Brecon Beacons.
Well,
it turned out, eventually turned out to be 3. It was the three guys who died on SAS selection.
Yeah.
Was a 2-3 SAS. But that for me, that really hit home, because we were pretty much doing the same thing that they were doing.
Yeah.
But on our own steam, but we didn't have the pressure.
Yeah.
Of we didn't have our careers landed riding on this, which they will have had that. We were able to stay to look at ourselves and think, right, we've got to stop right now, otherwise it's going to get bad. When you're on a course and you're under test conditions, if they'd said I can't go any further, then they would have been off the course.
Yeah.
So it's
more
you
pressure.
can see the pressure they had, and unfortunately, 3 people lost their lives for that, and but.
So it sounds quite a sobering experience. That.
It was. I mean, and it really is, and there's a lot of times I think about that, just to think of how lucky we were that we didn't put ourselves under that extra pressure of saying. I mean, there was people who knew we were doing it, but we weren't under any test conditions. It was just more like peer pressure, just to say we'd done it. But I remember thinking how lucky we were, because I'm sure if one of us out of the 3 of us had said, "Come on, you two,"
you would have carried on.
We'll get through this. Then we probably would have, succumbed at the mountain. And and I have this thing whenever I climb mountains. I always. It's not even sort of mental. It's not even sort of subconsciously. I sometimes physically say it. If there's no one around, I'll say, "Thank you for looking after me today."
Wow.
And then I'll say, "Please look after me on the way down."
Brilliant.
Because I'm always conscious of the fact that majority of accidents that happen on mountains are on the descent.
Yeah.
Because people think they've done the hard bit. They're tired. They're switched off, and that's when they'll slip down a track or something, or they'll slip off an edge or something like that. But I always say, thank you for, because I always think that it's the mountain owns that area, and we're just visitors, and we've got to respect the mountain. And
you got to respect, and like you say as well, respect your own ability. When you're doing anything like that, you've got to know what you can do, and you've got to do your homework. I mean, we're here at Lighthouse Therapy Group, we're chuffed at the minute because we've took on our first volunteer. So it's quite a big thing for us, and she's fully qualified in all outdoor activities. So we're hoping to be going out and getting groups together and doing hikes and kind of hydro speeding with another company that I'm working with, Lee Simpson, and we're hopefully going to be doing all this. But it's important to know your own limits.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to really kind of take a step back. I mean, if it takes a para to kind of real courage to step out, well, no, I've got to stop.
But that's what goes back to, I said, my two friends who were said jump out of planes for a living. They said, we don't want to do this because we're not comfortable doing this, and we said, oh, okay, and nothing. And the thing is, nothing was said after.
Absolutely.
It's not. I think they were worried we were going to go to the pub later and just sort of take the mick out of them because they didn't want to go to the top of a mountain, but.
It's such a daft mentality.
Everyone has their comfort zone, and that wasn't theirs, and
So do you find that, like, really kind of getting on the hills and the mountains and all that, do you find that really kind of benefits your kind of mental health?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that I'm not someone that usually gets very stressed, but I find that I have felt a little bit of stress after I've left the army, and I just thought, particularly starting full-time work was stressing me more than I ever thought it would.
Yeah.
But I think that was more because of the commute as well, because it's an hour into the office for me. So I was working 37.5 hours with 10 hours commute on top of that as well. Wow. And I found that I was seeing less of my family and having also less free time than I was when I was actually in the army. Yeah. And being able to sort of, I use the term throttle back to 3 days a week, is I find it's not just like cheaper on the fuel for a start, but it's also mentally, it's no matter how hard I push myself in the office doing work, getting stuff done, the next day I've got it off. Yeah, which is for me, it's just like it's a bit of me time, and that's the good thing about having the security of my pension as well, because albeit working 3 days a week at the moment, and I'm trying to set up a photography business. Financially, it's not the best thing to do, only we're doing 3 days a week, but because I've got the safety net of my pension, it's a good thing to have that. But but I find that instantly going from 5 days a week down to 3 days, I just find it's a lot less stressful. But also I then find myself being able to concentrate more and work better in the days that I'm in work, rather than just kind of getting snowed under.
And this is what a lot of companies don't actually grasp. A lot of businesses and everything, they put so much demand on the staff. But if they actually realise, well, if we invest in the staff, I give them a bit more time, give them a few more perks, take pressure off, the performance of the staff increases vastly. I mean, if you look at companies like Google, Google have got it absolutely bang on. They've got kind of quiet pods. So actually the staff, if they're feeling a bit stressed or they just want to declutter the mind, they'll go and sit in one of these quiet pods where they just switch off. And then they'll go back to work, and the work is so much better.
And it is, I mean, it is great. I hope that it doesn't come across saying that my job is a stressful job, because it's not. It's not a stressful job. It's a fantastic job, and I feel it's a huge privilege to work for the Bradley Lera Foundation, because I've seen the tangible work that they do on a daily basis, and in terms of, it might be financial support, it might be moral support, and it might be because most of the people in the office are trained counsellors themselves, and they can, but they've also got that experience of going through grief, as you can imagine, but just seeing the effect that they have in such a small office, on as a national, in what I consider a global scale as well, because they liaise with the hospitals over in New York, where they send people for neuroblastoma vaccinations over there. We've got one of the children we're supporting has to go over to Panama on a 6-monthly basis to receive stem cell treatment, which is a surprise to me, because I didn't realise that the top stem cell place on the planet is in Panama. But he goes out there just to help him with his quality of life. And the Bradley Lera Foundation support that, but not just in terms of financial support, but they'll also go out there and chaperone as well. They'll take time out of their own schedule to go out there and to help them, and just, if anything, just to hold their hand, really. Because it's uncharted territory for all the families we're supporting when they've got a young child who's got a really bad illness. And just having someone to support you, it's been through that.
It's fun. I mean, the Bradley Lowry Foundation, you're absolutely right. It is on a global scale now, and quite rightly so. The Bradley captured the hearts, and he brought, what I believe happened is he brought people together. And whenever something happens, and it was tragic circumstances. But to bring people together, that is a great legacy.
Yeah.
And is there any better one than bringing people together?
Yeah, I think in particular for that is certainly when you look at the Northeast and look at to look on the football world now, it's the bridge between Sunderland and Newcastle.
Yeah.
But it's not just Bradley.
Yeah.
It's what I like to say on record really is not just we all know about the rivalry between Sunderland and Newcastle, and how we always kind of ridicule their when they're not having a good time. But one thing a lot of people certainly outside the Northeast aren't really appreciative of is how they'll club together for each other.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm talking, when you've got times when you've got like the young kids who are ill, who are the fans, but you've also got you know, like the MH17 disaster.
Yeah.
When it was a couple of Sunderland fans set up a Just Giving page for to raise money for the family, but even now we you know, I do a lot of I mean I've played, but I'm not a very good footballer these days, but I do a lot of photos and videos for like Geordie's versus Mackham's charity football matches and things like that, and we all come together to help kids that are in need. It's not just about honour, you know, remembering people. It's just about literally getting together and helping out people. And it's great to see that, you know, the old adage of remember the hashtag cancer has no colours, but really it doesn't have any colours, and it's, you know, it's we've got to remember that life is much bigger than a football rivalry.
Exactly.
You know, and I know this from looking at my social media page. Some of the more popular posts that I've put out on my social media was me sort of, I might do like like put a post out on the anniversary of Bobby Robson's death or something like that, or recently on the anniversary of Pavel Cernacek passing away, and you know, say on behalf of Sunderland fans that, you know, we're thinking of you, and it's true. It's like it's there. We all club together when in times of need. You know, we'll put our differences aside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of humanness. I mean, I was at the match last night, and I was lucky enough to get invited into one of the boxes, and I'll give him a quick plug. Chris came from Dodio Studios. He invited us into the box, and sure enough, the box next to us was Charlie Methven. And I was like, well, and he turned up and he put the Sunderland shirt and what on. And sure enough, at the end of the game, there was a bunch of fans, knew he was there, and they just started turning around chanting, Charlie Methven's a wanker. And I'm stood there, I'm like, hang on, this is a bloke who's come to watch a football game.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bloke, it's a human being come to watch a football game, he's put on the shirt. But people lose sight of actually the humanness of people, and you're absolutely right. What the Bradley Lowry Foundation's doing, well, it's done and continues to do, is to recognise that, come on, there's more important things going on.
Yeah.
But talking about the football, that actually kind of brings us onto another little project that you've got going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I started. I used to be an admin on a Sunderland supporters page on Facebook. Just because they recruited me into that because they saw I could do some sort of, I know my way around a laptop, and I can do little memes and things like that. But I decided to sort of go alone, and because I almost have a unique squaddy kind of sense of humour.
Yeah.
And I just thought it would be good to set up my own little social media pages where I could basically see things in a funny light, and just try and bring a bit of humour to things, especially when times aren't going so well. 'Cause, I mean, the page started, the Sunder Lad page started literally in the last few weeks of our time in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And it kind of like took off from there, and it's literally just, it is a bit of a hobby.
Yeah.
But I find myself now with 19,000 followers on Facebook.
Wow.
And 11,000 followers on Instagram, and I've got an increase in audience on on Twitter, but it's just literally it's just a fan account.
Yeah.
Just combining three of my sort of hobbies.
Yeah.
Which are basically Sunderland Football Club, photography,
Yeah.
and my sense of humour.
Yeah.
And I'm just
brilliant.
trying to put them all together, and I try and keep things as best as I can light-hearted. I try and keep things. I try not to make things personal.
Mm-hmm.
Although I might have a little bit of a stab at last night's referee.
Yeah.
Which is one thing. But I say, and I don't like to, I don't like to to make things personal. I try and avoid being political on it, although I have accidentally fallen down that trap myself. And but yeah, I just try and just put a funny spin on things, and it is hard to keep things positive.
Yeah.
But yet again, it went times. If you rewind just back 1 month, things were pretty bad for Sunderland.
Yes.
We were in the lowest position we'd ever been. And you find yourself trying to be positive on there and just trying to be funny for people. People call you a happy clapper and things like that, and you've got to be thin-skinned about it.
Yeah.
And not be afraid to block people either as well. If people, I mean, what I don't like is I like that everyone has opinions on things, and I have opinions, but what I don't like is when people become personal.
Exactly.
People because I've had my face on my page a few times, and someone says, some people have actually gone, God, this is a 40-year-old man with parents. This is a 40-year-old man with kids. He should be ashamed of himself doing this. Or they might say something like check his hard drive or something like that. I'm like, what's that all about to do with it? They just say completely random personal things, and or I got called a rat because people found out that I didn't vote Labour.
Oh God.
And I was just like, well, everyone's entitled to it, but just don't be personal about it. And so I say I try and keep it just humorous and stuff like that.
Keep going with Max.
Yeah. And I've actually just started off putting some videos on YouTube and that as well. But I say it's not for making profit. I don't want to make a single penny out of it. But it's just basically just to keep people smiling in these times.
And I think that's absolutely inspirational again, man. Yeah. To give people a little something in darkest times. I mean, you're absolutely right. Sunderland Football Club we were in dark times. Things are looking a bit more up, but it's difficult everywhere. I mean, this hashtag Donald out. I was like, what?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, when it comes to the hashtag Donald out and stuff, firstly, I disagree. But also, I would never, even if I did agree, I wouldn't put myself in a position to do that because of the links. Because I do work for the Bradley Lera Foundation as well, and the club have been absolutely amazing over the last few years and helping the charity, and still continue to help the foundation. Yeah. And and it's not in my position at all to be criticising any of the ownerships and stuff like that. We might have a slag off, might have a slight stab at some of the players if they're not hitting the target or something like that. But in terms of the ownership, I mean, and this is where I think a lot of fans really don't understand the financial aspect of it, and they think that because they don't understand it, they just think that it's he's in it just to make money and stuff like that, and I disagree with that. And I personally think that Stewart Donald has been a breath of fresh air. Yeah. Absolutely.
I totally agree.
It's a shame he's not engaging with the fans as much as he was. I mean, I think he was doing it, and he'll be the first to admit he was being a bit too close in terms of being on Twitter and answering all the questions and stuff like that. But by shutting himself away from the fans now is almost the complete polar opposite now. I think if he could just be out there and do more podcasts and do more.
Well, that might be a good plug for him to get him on there.
It'd be brilliant. Yeah.
Stewart, yeah.
Get it. I mean, I think that'd be great to see. Just be out there and just be as transparent as he can. It'd be great. But
I mean,
there's no need to be on. I wouldn't say you need to be answering every single tweet on Twitter and stuff like that, because people do. Twitter is a very toxic place at times, and I've found that myself quite a lot. So.
But we went when all the fan scenes got together, and I was like, I'm a fan. I've been going to see Sunderland since Roker Park. Me dad had the same seat at the Stadium of Light since it opened. I took it over after his passing. My son, hopefully in the future, will have that seat. Them fanzines do not represent, in my opinion, the majority of the fans.
No. And do you know what? They've come out and said that since. They've said that we don't represent the fans. But I think they really have to understand that people do regard them to do that.
Yeah.
And there need to be... I didn't think it was a very good thing for them to do, to start the Donald Out campaign, because they didn't know. Yeah. They didn't know exactly how many people were actually on that that way of thinking when it comes to Donald Out.
But coming back to your Sunder Lad, though, I think it's fascinating how, if we think about what we were talking earlier on about the kind of elements of ourselves, and it is a kind of alter ego type thing, the Sunder Lad.
Exactly.
And I think to have that kind of escapism, when you think, you say it's not a stressful job working for the Bradley Lowry Foundation, and I'm sure it's not, but it still is a pressure to kind of perform.
Yeah. So
to have that kind of escapism from all the different elements of our life, I think it's fantastic. I really hope you keep going with it.
Yeah, I say I will. I mean, if for whatever, if I ever had the club came round and said to me, Chris, we don't want you to do that, you're putting us in a bad light or something, or if someone was to say that, I'd say, I want you to stop doing that, then I would. Because I say I'm not doing it for financial reasons. I'm doing it just to sort of people just to see, want to put some more pictures out there so people can see it, but also just to try and keep people smiling. And,
brilliant, man. Brilliant.
But also, and I will stress this, there will be quiet periods on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays during the day that I don't put posts out on Sunder Lad as well, because work is work, and Sunder Lad's Sunder Lad and stuff like that. So
so you've got to have the separation and the boundaries and all that.
Yeah.
And quite rightly so, I would imagine. But no, it's been absolute. I could actually sit here all day and actually talk to you, Chris, and I'd like to put it out there on camera now and invite you again on in the future.
I'd love to. Whenever Stewart Donald's here, just give me a shout.
Yeah.
I'll come along and,
We'll get Stewart Donald and Charlie on. Yeah. But I've met with them a couple of times. I actually played football with them at the stadium, and I like to think I'm a good sense of character, good judge of character, and I think they're good people. And the way that people go on about, especially last night, he's a decent bloke, and when people start acting like that, it really is their issues.
Yeah.
It's their issues where they need to deal with. And that's actually another good plug. You've got issues, so take my number, give us a call. You've got some issues, come in and let's talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I thank you very much for coming in.
No, Mark, it's been a pleasure.
I know we've got so much more to talk about. Yeah. And
I'll drag you out on the hills whenever I can.
Please, man. Please. I look forward to that. And hopefully our producer might get a picture of that sunset that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And a picture of you up that mountain having a coffee.
Will do. I'll send that.
Magic.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Chris.